Hello, welcome back to some Gamerback podcast, more Pokemon stuff from just me. I guess this is becoming a little bit of a series of uploads for me where since I've been pretty hooked on some Pokemon lately, I'm just making a bunch of videos about it. That's all right. But today's topic is going to be in a similar vein to the last topic, where it's going to be theory and speculation, this time about what is called the Tao Trio. Some people call it Energy Trio, but basically the Unova dragons, Zekrom, Reshiram, Kyurem. We're going to be talking about them today. And also a couple other topics. But basically, in the Scarlet and Violet DLC, there's a character called Snacksworth who has encountered a bunch of legendary Pokemon, specifically in the Paldea region, and he tells you stories and tells you where to go find them and how to catch them and whatever. And three of these Pokemon that can be caught are the Tao Trio, Zekrom, Reshiram, and Kyurem. Now, normally, this is not very interesting. And as we know, I guess people that don't play a lot of Pokemon don't realize that legendaries are not usually one of a kind. Like, there are a handful of Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos, there's even confirmed to be multiple Mewtwo, multiple type nulls appear in games, multiple Lugias and Ho-Ohs, and all that. And so, not many legendary Pokemon are actually one of a kind. But some of the few that are they're not confirmed because nothing's really confirmed, but some of the few that we believe to be one of a kind are the Tao Trio. And this is mostly due to their backstory and history within the Unova region. And you can say and you can go, oh, but we've seen Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem. They've appeared in Ultra Sun, they've appeared in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and they've appeared in Sword and Shield as catchable Pokemon. Now, all three of those appearances are justified with different things. In Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, those Pokemon that appear are from Hooper Rings, which are from other dimensions. So that those are not the original Reshiram, Kyurem, Zekrom that are in the Pokemon world. So they're brought there from an outside source. Same goes for Omega Ruby, or I'm sorry, same goes for Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, where they are in Ultra Space. So once again, they're brought from an outside world. And in the Crown Tundra and Sword and Shield, this one's a little lesser known, but the Max Raid adventures, those are a result of Ultra Wormholes as well, which I'll bring up in better detail later to explain, but just hold on tight for that. Basically, this is the first time we are seeing these Pokemon outside the Unova region without multiverse shenanigans, basically, since the Unova games, which is kind of a big deal. So I was wondering, how does this affect the lore? Or does it even affect the lore? You know? And so I took to Reddit, which I is my preferred way of sparking discussion over things like this. There's a pretty decent community in the r/Pokemon conspiracies, which I like to bring a lot of my problems and questions and theories and whatever for feedback and discussion. I also posted to the regular Scarlet Violet subreddit, but not a lot of people received it well over there. I think because like anything that slightly critiques Scarlet and Violet, they take a lot of offense to. If you're obviously if you use a subreddit, I'm not saying you are one of these people. Every time I post here, I don't know what it is. I don't even have malicious intent or anything, but they kind of just downvote me and they kind of flame me in the comments. So this I don't get much discussion from here, but I posted this to the subreddits a couple days ago, and discussion has kind of died down now. So I figured I'm going to read through some things. I'm going to go over what all of the proposed possibilities to these dragons being here in Paldea could possibly mean. Um, yeah. So, well, first, I guess for those who don't know, let's do a quick overview of their original backstory in Unova, which is what I have. Shout out to Bulbapedia; they're pretty good for lore stuff. But their myths go as There are two twins. The twin heroes are twin kings of Unova, and there is one dragon that they shared. As the brothers grew older, they both looked for different paths in life, thus splitting the dragon into two dragons, aka Zekrom, which was the dragon of ideals, and Reshiram, the dragon of truths. However, in splitting, they left behind a husk of the third, or it might not even be a husk of the third dragon, but they left behind a husk called Kyurem, right? And Kyurem's backstory is also a little confusing because it has two backstories. It has that backstory where it's the husk of Zekrom and Reshiram, and it has a second backstory saying that it just fell from a meteor one day, and the meteor landed in a giant chasm, and Kyurem just kind of hung out over there. So, what do you want to believe is up to you. I think it's more likely it's a combination of the two, where a meteor fell in a giant chasm, and the meteor that fell is probably the original dragon, and when the dragon split, Kyurem just went back to the giant chasm, or possibly that um, the splitting of the dragons resulted in a meteor-like impact that just left Kyurem in the giant chasm. But either way, that is essentially their backstory. And then the dragons are, I guess, implied to have after the sometime after the twins, did their truth and ideals thing, and they had a war. They reverted back to these orbs. What the light stone and the dark stone, and then those stones were found in the series of Black and White and Black and White Two, and the dragons are reawoken by N and the player character, and the stories of those games occur, which I'm not going to spoil because those are pretty good games. Go play them yourself. But that's just an overview. But now, obviously, they have a very specific backstory, that being the dragon splitting from an original dragon, reverting into the dark and light stone, and then being uncovered later. So, do these new dragons, or these possibly old dragons, in Paldea have the same backstory? I immediately jumped to these can't be the same dragons because the timeline might not line up correctly. However, from the discussion, a lot of discussion in these comments, it seems like the consensus is that these are the same dragons from Unova. But first, I'm going to say what my immediate thoughts were about this. I jumped to that these are new dragons, not the old ones that traveled from Unova to Paldea. And the reason behind that is because originally, because you can get all three in one version, Zekrom, Reshiram, and Kyurem, and you don't need the other two to get Kyurem like you typically would. So I kind of figured that, because I kind of forgot, I forgot a key element in Black and White 2, which is that you don't need to catch the dragons in Black and White 2 to complete the game. Therefore, it might not be canon. So the player character in Black and White 2 lets both Kyurem and either Reshiram or just one of Zekrom and Reshiram go. Because N releases his dragon and Kyurem, the player character, never catches. Meaning that leaves room for those two dragons to travel to Paldea for reasons unknown. But there's also kind of a conflict there with Snacksworth kind of looking pretty old. And we don't know the time difference between Black and White 2 and Scarlet and Violet. Which I'm going to assume it's not enough for Snacksworth to be, in his youth, as he says, and encounter these dragons. Well, what I'm trying to say is Snacksworth might have encountered these dragons before they were released from the Light and Darkstone in Black and White. That's what I'm confused about. You know, because if he's old enough to be young before the events of Black and White, and he met the dragons before the events of Black and White, then that must mean that these dragons are different from the ones in Black and White because those were not released from the stone yet. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why I was like, oh, these dragons must be different. But let's see what other people are saying. Also, Uh, this guy, Kiskium 2. I don't know how to say his name. He's really awesome. He's someone I've talked to. I've DM'd him a couple times on a couple occasions, but we comment on each other's posts a lot. He is a great compilation of lore and theories and things like that. So if for every single region, and he's going through and he's basically making almost like a book out of it. So if you're really interested in that stuff, I definitely recommend going to check out his Reddit. He has a lot of links and stuff that I'll show it real quickly. Wants to load, yeah, yeah. Main hub, and there's a lot of stuff on here, and it's a lot to get. I've not read it all. I've read all the Unova stuff because that's my favorites. But every once in a while, if I'm like hankering for some Pokemon conspiracies, as the subreddit is named, I'll go to his stuff or their stuff. I'm sorry, but yeah. So this is the first person that proposed that these are the same dragons. This legal treat, and he says the legendaries in Scarlet are technically version exclusive, which is you're right because you need to play multiplayer to get the other. You can get Kyurem and either Reshiram or Zekrom in one save without having to need. Oh no, I'm sorry. You can only get Reshiram playing single player. You can get Kyurem playing multiplayer, but you can get Zekrom playing multiplayer only with the opposite version. I think that's how it goes. So basically, what he's saying is that because Zekrom, for example, if you're playing in Scarlet, you get Reshiram, Kyurem, but Zekrom you need a different version for, therefore making Zekrom not canon. So because in Black, N catches Zekrom, or I'm sorry, in Black, N catches Reshiram, in Black 2, N releases Reshiram, in between Black 2 and Scarlet Violet, Reshiram comes to Paldea. That's what he's proposing. And that works, but that brings up the question of how old is Snacksworth? Because, or how long is the period of time between Black and White 2 and Scarlet and Violet? Because maybe it's just a longer amount of time than we think. Because typically we imagine, a couple years in between every Pokemon game, so it's probably 10 to 15 years between Black and White 2 and Scarlet and Violet. But possibly it's been like 50 years, and we just don't know that. But then going off the age of Drayton, because Drayton is the grandkid of Drayden, and Drayden was already pretty old enough to have kids in Black and White too. That would make him old as fuck, right? So I guess that I don't know. That's kind of my main thing. But I do hear disregarding Snacksworth age, this does work. But then it also brings up the question for me, which is I bring it up here. Why does Kyurem leave the giant chasm? If Kyurem, because right, Reshiram was in the Lightstone for like hundreds of years. Zekrom was in the Darkstone for hundreds of years, but Kyurem was just hanging out. He was not in any stone, or at least no stone that we know of. I know in the code for Black and White, there's something called the Godstone that was going to be linked to Kyurem, but that's never in the games, so it's not canon. Maybe in the Black and White remakes, or if we get a Legends Unova, we'll get some stuff, some more lore about that. But as we know right now, Kyurem literally just sat in the giant chasm for the same amount of time the Zekrom and Reshiram were in their stones. He just stood there. He was there. He didn't leave. There's the stories in Lakanosa Town where he ate some kids, but that's still not that far from Giant Chasm. So what is prompting Kyurem to get up off his ass and leave, not just to go somewhere in the Unova region, but to go somewhere overseas into a different time zone? You know, that's very uh like out of character almost. If he was sitting in the same place for so long and then randomly decide, and not only that, it's just a random cave in Paldea. It's not even a significant place. Like it's not where other legendaries are. It's not where some strong trainer is. He's just sitting in a cave doing nothing. Which is kind of what he does in the giant chasm. But why is he doing nothing somewhere else now? Is what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of a problem. This guy, he proposed something interesting, which I want to say I've never seen someone do this before. The first time I read this, I was confused. Maybe Kyurem sensed a Rom in Paldea and left to chase after it. And then I realized Zekrom, Reshiram, he's combining the last part of their names to make one. I do like that. That's pretty creative. So he's saying Zekrom or Reshiram. So maybe Kyurem sensed Zekrom or Reshiram in Paldea and left to chase after it. That could work. That could also work. That would be interesting. So option one is after Black and White 2, now Reshiram being released from N and not being restrained to Light Orb, just decided to go to Paldea for whatever reasons unknown. And because Kyurem may be finally sensing the energy of Reshiram being released from the Light Stone, decides to chase it because Kyurem wants to fuse and become whole again. So that's possibility one. Possibility two is that was the original thing I was getting into, that these are just new specimens that have always existed in Paldea, which I would find confusing because that would mean that there's another original dragon. I don't like that one. I like this one though, where basically ignoring Snacksworth's age, maybe he's uh, exaggerating a bit when he says like, "Oh, when I was younger." Maybe he just means like 5 years ago. I don't really know. Like maybe he's fibbing a bit in his stories. If you want to take it as that, he could be saying like, "Oh, a couple years ago, I found Zekrom in chilling in Paldea for no reason." So option one is Reshiram leaves Unova after Black and White 2, ends up in Paldea, and Kyurem chases it. So let's get into some more discussion. This guy brings something up interesting. I don't agree with this, but I understand it. I understand. He says, I'm in a minority opinion when it comes to this. I've always made a point to assume the exact opposite. There can always be more than one legendary Pokemon in existence. Which I feel like that is how I operate with most other legendaries, except for the Tao Trio, because they have such a specific, like, thing. They have such a specific backstory. They have such a specific reason of existing, and especially the existence of the original dragon is so if the original dragon is said to be like this all powerful godly dragon, and why would there be two of it? And why would coincidentally both of them split into three parts? You know, it just raises a lot of questions for me. Okay, I gotta mute this. Done. Sorry about that. Um, but yeah, so yeah, he says there is so much room for possibilities, and he's not wrong about that. It is entirely possible that that a situation occurred twice, but how possible is it? I don't know. And then this is what the important thing is. That being said, the games have established now multiple means of bringing Pokemon from parallel universes. So these legendaries could just be chalked up to Terrapagos running amok, you know? Because we know that Terrapagos brings Pokemon from other timelines, as we see with the Paradox Pokemon. So I guess it's also possible for it to kind of just be a Hoopa situation or a Ultra Wormhole situation where it's Terrapagos bringing these Pokemon from a different timeline. Therefore, the original backstory is still in place and doesn't affect the Unova ones. And these are different ones brought from a different reality. I don't. Once again, I feel like multiverse theory at this point is such a cop out for so many different things. Where it's just like, oh, finally we can have some interesting developments in the lore of the Tao Trio. Oh wait, no, it's just multiverse. They're not from here. That's just annoying to me. And I think it's low effort to explain things away as like, oh well, in this reality, something happens differently. Oh well, in this reality, this happens. Oh, the realities are crossing over. It's like just like why it feels like an excuse. It was cool at first, but now it's been done for almost a decade. Nah, not almost a decade, but like quite some amount of time in the Pokemon franchise where it's like, oh, you know, how are these legendaries here? Hooper rings from other realities. Okay. How are the Ultra Beasts here? Ultra Wormholes from Ultra Realities. Okay. And it just keeps happening. and I don't like that. Give me something different. Give me something interesting. Make these give these this Tao Trio a different backstory, perhaps, or something like along the lines. Maybe how about this? We know legendaries can come from eggs, as we've seen in Heart Gold Soul Silver. We've seen Arceus produce a Giratina, Palkia, and Dialga egg. How about we do something similar and we have the Tau Trio lay eggs or something? I'm not saying we have to have them breed, but have some type of in-game event where, like, you know, not saying it's gonna be Arceus or like something. Just give me something new. That's all I'm saying. you know, it would be interesting to have a different backstory where, okay, this one's backstory is they split from the original dragon, but these new ones actually hatched from an egg or something along the lines of that. Either way, whatever. Uh, yeah, a lot of people are saying, oh, the developers didn't care for the lore, they didn't think about the impact of the lore, and a lot of the people. The reason I'm ignoring this discussion, excuse me, yeah, excuse me, but because a lot of people here were just like, no, it doesn't affect the lore at all. It just they're added just for gameplay and to make them catchable. Well, it's like, okay, if that's the reason, why didn't they bring back Dialga and Palkia to be catchable like this? Why didn't they bring back Calyrex? Why did they bring back Zacian and Zamazenta? You know, choosing specifically these three is just it's just interesting to me. And not everything has lore implications. You're right, but at the same time, you're not right. I don't want to say you're wrong, but I don't think this is right because like everything is. I mean, everything's circumstantial, and I do think that like if you want to take it from an analytic standpoint, you can say, oh, you know, the existence of the Kanto birds, Zapdos, Moltres, Articuno. They're in Kanto, they're in Sinnoh, they appear in Kalos, they appear in Galar with the Galarian versions, and now they appear in Paldea. Does that mean that there's only one set of birds that travel everywhere and the player characters never catch them? Or does that mean that, oh, these are all different birds? You know, I think there's interesting discussion to be had here. And a lot of these people just shut it down. They just shut it down and say, "Oh no, it means nothing. It's not canon." Which, like, then you could just say nothing's canon. Then you could just say, "Oh, the player character getting Koraidon in the beginning of the game isn't canon because it doesn't have to be," and that's annoying. Once, not to be that guy, it is like nothing's canon if it doesn't have to be. Therefore, nothing goddamn matters. Anyway, that's why I didn't get a lot of good results from it. Even I was trying to justify it. That was like, if that was really the case, why don't they explain it as another wormhole? If they didn't want it to be canon, they have the cop out answer. They have multiple cop out answers, but we don't get it. That's why it stands out to me. If they wanted it to not be canon, they could just say, "Oh, an ultra wormhole brought it here," or "Oh, Koopa is back," or "Oh, we have Terrapagos here." So why don't they just use that excuse? But they don't use that excuse, or at least not yet that we know of. That's what you know. If they wanted to, they would have made it not canon. They've done it before. Anyway, I'm gonna close this tab before it gets me upset. But yeah, just shutting it down is like nothing. It is like that's just a little lame to me. Let's see. Let's see. I guess it becomes shady when factoring in the stone's locations, emitting the two awakened. Oh yeah, and something I don't remember this when I was playing through Black and White 2, but apparently the dragons did awaken from the stones in between their like original going to sleep in Black and White. But this guy doesn't even remember where that dialogue is, and he's kind of like the master of everything, so I trust him pretty well. But in Unova, one of the stones was in Dragon's Power Tower, which had no visible entrance until the events of the game, and the other was in the museum after being recovered from the desert resort. So the idea that they were awakened more in modern times, traveled all the way to Paldea without the respective heroes meeting them, and then being met by young Snacksworth, who doesn't mention any trainer with them, only from the return of Unova and revert back to Stones, and being kept in places linked to the ancient kingdom, one of which is impossible to reach for modern people, seems convoluted at best. Not to mention, Kyurem would have also had to flee. This is what I'm saying. Kyurem would have had to left the giant chasm for no reason. If you ask me, it's more likely enough time passes between Black and White 2 and Scarlet and Violet for these encounters in the man's youth to have occurred after the Unovan games. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was saying earlier, wasn't it? Where in between Black and White 2, Snacksworth meets them, and that whole thing occurs. But once again, it brings up the question: why do we see them in the exact same place? Whatever. Reshiram and Zekrom has lived for thousands of years. They've likely met thousands of heroes and bestowed their knowledge upon them. There's plenty of time for them to have accompanied the other heroes and traveled to other regions. And we don't know that they don't have to, and we know they don't have to be trainers the entire time they are awake, as we've seen them multiple times like this in the main series, such as Oras, Oceanus Moon, Reshiram, and Scarlet Violet. These are all Ultra Wormholes or Hoopa. These, I'm not even going to think about them being canon. I know none. Poken's not canon. Mystery Dungeon's not canon. Poke Park, I don't think it's canon. Anime's not canon of the games. Battle Troze, Conquest, no, those are not canon to the main series. Yeah, okay. Dragon's Power Tower was torn apart. There could be other entries. I agree with this. Same thing's been thousands of years. It's not that absurd to think Kieran left the chasm at some point or another. That's true. He could have went for a walk or something, but eat some kids like he said, like the guys in the myth said. But who knows? That's unlikely, as the amount of time between Black and White 2 and Scarlet is only to be indicated to be a couple of years. If Mimikyu's Violet Pokedex isn't complete nonsense, what is Mimikyu's? Let's check this out. This might be a development. Sarah B. Shout out to Sarah B. Violet. Oh, that's okay. Violet. Mimikyu was only recently identified as a Pokemon. Previously, people thought it was just a ghost wearing a cloth. It's taking damage and hold the whole heavens for as long as it lives. Mimikyu will never forget its attacker. So Mimikyu was only recently discovered as a Pokemon, meaning around the time of Sun and Moon, I presume. Which Sun and Moon obviously takes place after Black and White because of Colress and Grimsley. So yeah, I guess this guy's right about that, saying that the time lines up. Yeah. I really like that this is convoluting in a rather simple narration in order for this to work. This thing? I don't know what he's trying to say here, typo or something. Are we saying the two found their heroes in modern times that are never ever mentioned in the games, did something with them that went completely unspoken, traveled to Paldea along with Kyurem, that decided to somehow go on a trip after thousands of years of lurking? This is exactly what I'm saying. He's a lurker. He's a cave dweller. He's a Neanderthal for no apparent reason. Then turned back all three. Oh, then yeah, all back turn three just to rest where they had always been, only for no one to recognize the stones during the point of mistaking it for a common rock. For heroes to be recognized worthy, these last ones sure lack the skill to deliver basic information to the authorities. Moreover, this assuming Reshiram and Zekrom can revert to the stone at will, with a description of the stones actually revealed this happened after the destruction of their body. Japanese may as well point to their actual perishment in battle. Very interesting. So it's more of a defense mechanism to escape death than a willful slumber. Yeah. My fellow take on the matter is fuck. I agree. I agree. It's so complicated, but that's what makes it so interesting. That's what I really like here. There's a lot of different options. There's not really a clear option yet, and this, who knows? This might just be setting up more lore for when we get a Unova remake or when we return to Unova, whatever it might be. There's so much, which is what I'm looking forward to because the Unova games are my favorite games. I'm from New York City, you know. It feels like I'm playing in my hometown. I look forward to it so much, and there's so many mysteries about where did Ingo go, the Blueberry Academy can have returning characters. The original Dragon, even original Genesect. What happened to Team Plasma? Where did Getsus go? Where's the original player character? All that stuff can be explored in a Return to Unova. I'm not saying Unova remakes. I'm not saying Legends Kyurem because I really don't know what they will do. But there is a lot of options. But yeah, fuck. It's just confusing. because it presents this weird, just like Snacksworth either has to be deceptively young to make this whole thing work, right? Or deceptively old and just lying about his like the time frame. But yeah, I kind of mostly I'm agreeing with him because that was my original my like not my original thought, but like one of my thoughts in the first place was after Black and White 2, dragons come here because it makes sense that they're freed already. And then I guess you can kind of like uh headcanon that Kyurem is chasing the dragon because it wants to be complete, you know? So dragon comes from over to Paldea, maybe seeking how about this? Let's put this all together. The dragon is seeking the player character from Black and White, just as N was. Remember how N in between Black and White and Black and White 2 was looking for the original player character? Maybe Reshiram is still looking for the player character. It's searching for the player character in Paldea when it stumbles across Snacksworth. And at the same time, Reshiram is being chased around the world by Kyurem, who wants to be complete. Why we meet Reshiram in the same place that Snacksworth met them, I'm not. I don't know. I'm just gonna chalk it up to just like being easy to catch them in the game, maybe. But maybe that can be the explanation that I'm gonna roll with for now. Reshiram was looking for the original player character. Kieran was chasing it. There are some more comments though. Let's go through. Not really convoluted at all, dude. It totally is. But additionally, Reshiram Zekrom can return to the stone forms of will, as is what they do in Black and White 2 after beating N. Relatable. Is that what happens? Oh wow, this goes on for a while. The convoluted part is not that they eventually reach the other regions. Kyurem is more ridiculous to me. That is. I agree with this. I never got the impression it went further than Lacanosa, considering we do find it in the same spot after thousands of years. But let's just say it's since the other two have followed to Paldea. That's what I'm saying. Okay, me and this guy are on the same page. We're on the same page here. With the lack of knowledge of moderns regarding the stones, to me it is absurd that no one mentions a recent awakening where the whole game is about awakening them, and that the last heroes did not pass on any knowledge whatsoever. Also, you're right, the legendary does return to the stone willingly in Black to White 2, but this is even more problematic considering the description. The body being destroyed is then an occurrence specific to less slumber. So he's like analyzing the Japanese, which I'm not going to get into because I don't speak Japanese. Maybe not see my edit though. I think there's a possible way to harmonize this is to admit the last heroes were about a couple of centuries in the past, and legendaries were freed since then more recently. It explains why Snacksmith didn't notice any trainer with them. They simply outlived them. It explains why the games ever mentioned a recent awakening. There wasn't any. And you kind of have to introduce the notion that they reverted to stones when morally wounded slash dying of old age. Or mortally wounded slash dying of old age for that description to work, which just to me still sounds like a retcon in the sense they were probably meant to be linked to the last conflict we knew about, but nonetheless can work retroactively. Can you even fly there? It's capable of fly. Yes, it is. Kyurem, I used to fly on Kyurem in Black and White too. Open at dragons after the hero songs. Holy damn! These guys go forever. Kyurem tends to get a bit quirky at night. I know. He's a child eater. People don't believe me when I say that. He eats kids. Kyurem's a fucking actual real monster. It's relevant to locate the stones, though, which while I find absurd the last heroes were 70 years ago or so to me, it is too short of a time frame for any knowledge on them to be lost. I agree with this. I think a couple centuries works best with the current given data. The specifics are still clearly afterthoughts. Once again, I agree. That makes sense. Kieran walked all the way to Faraway region, bringing death and destruction at his passage, then rested at a cave, ate a snack from a man, and turned back. Maybe the snack was human flavored. Yeah, nah, Kyurem. Kyurem's my favorite legendary too. In case you didn't know that, Kyurem's absolutely my favorite legendary. But it just does not like it's a tough sell for me to believe that Kyurem got up off his ass, stopped fucking eating children, stumbled all the way to Paldea with no one noticing, bumped into Snacksworth, and then went all the way back to Unova. I don't know, man. Of course, that with what we know, they can totally go down a different route and reveal less heroes were actually jerks who didn't share information, or foreigners who just happen to find legendaries. But rather than assuming time frame characterization, I only assume the time frame for the time being. That's another thing I like about this guy. See, I've interacted with both these guys on occasions. Legal Treat seems to be more like rigid with his speculation discussions, where it's like this guy seems to be more like things can change, and he's open is more open to like differentiation and possibilities, and saying like this is a possibility. But he's pretty hooked on like he's more easy to bend with, and that's kind of how I operate. Whereas like I have my thought and my prediction and my theory, but I'm aware that it's probably wrong. Not, but this guy, he's pretty accurate. But he's also, he's saying, I only assume retirement for the time being. Yeah, that's what I agree with. Things are until something's proven, nothing's set in stone. Um, so saying like, oh, the last heroes didn't have to necessarily be in Unova, we don't know that. We don't know if the last heroes were or were not Unova. In fact, we don't even know if there were actually heroes between the original heroes and in the player character. We don't know that until we get proven otherwise, or we get proven that that did happen. There's no definitive way to say that that's possible, which is why, for the time being, I think this guy's is who I'm agreeing with more in this long debate that they had. Although I do appreciate the discussion here. I do love reading it. Uh, where were we? I don't even know. Jesus Christ! This is literally look how long this discussion is. Okay, it's usually the case with past Legends games. He gets down. See, like this mindset is just like in Pokemon conspiracies, it's not going to fly. Where it's just like, oh, it's nothing. Hooper rings. Oh wait, let's see what they're talking about. Yeah, they're usually written into the region properly or thrown in during via multiverse shenanigans. I 100% agree with this. If it's not multiverse shenanigans, they're usually written into the region properly. That's why I closed the other tab, but that's why I was upset with the other tab, just kind of writing it off as nothing. And this guy is wrong about the raid den thing, because raid dens are implied to be ultra wormholes. Yeah, scientists by the raid den says legendaries appear in the cave because of an ultra wormhole, which is why they're studying the cave. Um, that happens. Not really, since you can cope justifications say they all came from ultra wormhole. Yeah, you can say that, but once again, they don't. So there's no way to say definitively. There was Sword and Shield 2. Legendaries max rate would apply to come from ultra wormholes. Blah 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 blah. This dialogue explicitly saying that Crozma is in fact opening ultra wormholes in the den. Not to mention you called Necrozma the one responsible for the ultra wormhole. Yep, there's that. And that's the end here. But yeah, it's interesting. It is very interesting, this whole situation we've got on our hands. So hopefully, excuse me, we can get some more discussion going on in the comments. Maybe this picks up some steam and some bigger content creators. I know there's some other, they call themselves Poketubers out there that do a lot of theory work and whatever. So maybe there's someone out there that's more qualified than me and everyone else here to put these pieces together correctly. Whether or not these are new, this is a new Tao Trio, the old Tao Trio before the events of Black and White, the old Tao Trio after the events of Black and White. Those that seem to do okay. Let's before I close this out, the four possibilities I'm seeing here is one. Let's get this out of the way. It's multiverse. That these are just multiverse, but it's unexplained. Whether it be Trapagos, Hooper rings, ultra wormholes, or something else. that these are here because of the multiverse. That's option one. Option two is that these are a new Tao Trio with a different backstory that we just simply do not know their backstory, and they have always existed in the Paldea region. Option three is that this is the Tao Trio from Unova, and before Black and White, they came out of their orbs, went to Paldea, along with Kyurem going to Paldea from the giant chasm. All three of them simultaneously bumped into Snacksworth on separate occasions, then went back to Unova, went back in their orbs, Kyurem going back to the chasm, and then the events of Black and White and Black and White 2 occur. Or option four, which is what I am adding up to be the most likely here, which is after Black and White 2, Reshiram searches for the player character from Black and White 1, bringing it to Paldea in its search, where it bumps into Snacksworth. And at the same time, Kyurem, finally sensing that Reshiram is out of the Light Stone, excuse me, also follows Reshiram to Paldea, where it also meets Snacksworth. That is what I'm going to go with. But those are the four options I've gathered from this discussion. And if anyone else has proposes a different solution or something else, feel free to comment. Um, Feel free to go on r/ Pokemon Conspiracies and start a new discussion. These guys on here are the people I've seen like regulars on here, you know. Because this is probably the Reddit I use the most. I'm not really on Reddit super much, but when I am, I'm usually here. And I see this guy comments on things a lot. This guy comments on things a lot. So, you know, there's regulars around here that you'll talk to. I'm probably not be considered regular, but excuse me. But yeah, that's about that. I want I want to make this video for a couple of days, but I want to let the discussion die down before I can go over all the possibilities. But I'm very interested in to see where this goes, if it goes anywhere. Hopefully, it gets an explanation. But if not, then we got what we got. But yeah. Also, I'd like to address the time. It is 5 a.m., 5 in the morning where I am. Uh, I took a nap today by accident, and then I woke up at like 10. So I've kind of screwed up my sleep schedule, I think. That's all right because I've been doing homework for my winter classes. But don't worry, I'm not sleep deprived. I'm just I don't know what the right word is, but I got my sleep today. That's all. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Upload this probably tomorrow or something. Maybe I think I'll even probably post a link to the video here. So yo, if these are any of you guys, what's up guys? What's going on? Well, all right, see you guys next time.